In this video, we are going to talk about different ways in which we can iterate over an array. So here we have two arrays, colors and numbers. Colors is a collection of multiple strings and numbers is a collection of multiple numbers. So here we'll see two different ways to iterate over an array. The first one will be for loop that we have already seen it earlier, and the second one will be for off loop. And we'll try to understand the benefits of for off loop. So let's go ahead and write the for loop. For loop, we need to start with the initial value, that is 0, and we need to check using the length property of the array for the last value. So we'll say colors.length, and here we'll say increment the value of I every time you run the loop. And the simplest thing we can do right now is to just say console.log colors of I. So now let's go ahead and check out the output. Here we can see all the elements of the colors array, that is red, green, tomato and blue. What if we want to write the similar code, but this time we want to use the numbers variable? So we'll just replace colors with numbers, and now if we refresh it, the first thing we'll see is the colors, the second will be the numbers. So this is how you write for loop. For loop takes three things: initial value, last value, and what to do after each iteration. Because there are a lot of moving pieces here, the chances of you making error is more here. So let's just try to write the same loop, but this time we will be using for off loop. And let's see and try to see the difference between for loop and for off loop. So in for off loop, the way we write it is we say let color of colors. So I want to iterate over colors, and for each value I want to store that in a variable named color, and I can just log the value of color. Let's just go ahead and comment it out, so we'll see the output whether it is same or not. And here we can see the output is similar to how we were getting in this loop, and that is red, green, tomato and blue. Similarly, for number, we can just copy and paste this, and here instead of color we'll say number, and instead of colors we'll say numbers. So I want to iterate over numbers, and for each value store that into a variable named number and refresh that. And here we can see we are seeing the exact same output, but this time when we were writing for off loop, you can see that we don't have to write the initial value, then we have to write the last value and what to do after each iteration. Because for off loop understands that you have to start from 0 and go till the last, and you don't have to configure it in that way. So this is another way to iterate over an array, and for off loop is a new addition to the JavaScript family that makes accessing elements of the array really easy. So now if you try to compare these two things, you'll try to if you try to compare these two loops, you'll see this loop is much more smaller and the chances of creating error is less than for loop. So whenever you have to iterate over each element of the array, rather than using for loop, use for off loop. Let's go ahead and use this for some of the purposes. What if I want to go through all this element of the array and see if the number is odd or even? If the number is odd, I want to store it into a different array, and if the number is even, I want to store it in different array. So for that purpose, let's go ahead and create two variables called odd, that is going to be an empty array, and even, that is also going to be an empty array. Now using for off loop, we'll loop over numbers, and here using condition we'll say if, and we'll say number. We'll use remainder operator to check whether the number is divisible by 2 or not. If this is true, you have to add that number inside even variable. Let's see how we can add elements inside an array. The simplest way of doing that is by using index. So here we can say index 0 and the value is 42. So now we have an array with the value of 42 on 0th index. But every time you want to add a new value, you will have to remember the index of it. So it's not very feasible to do it in this way. So right now array has one element, that is 42. What if I want to add another element? What if we want to add a next element at the end of the array? So simplest way of doing that is just say array, and using dot operator, you access a special method that is present on every array called push. And push does exactly what it means. It will push a value at the end of the array. So if I say 20 and now you access array, you'll see the value 42 and 20 got added at the end of the array. Similarly, we can do it again. We can say array.push and 10 this time. Now if we look at array, we'll see 42, 20 and the last value is 10. So we are going to use this method to add values to our variable odd and even. So whenever the value is even, what we'll do? We'll go ahead and add that to even variable. So we'll say even dot push, and I want to push number. But if the number is not even, it means that the number is going to be odd. And we'll say odd dot push, and here we want to push number. Now if we refresh this page and access the variable odd, we'll see all the odd numbers will be in this variable. Similarly, if we say even, we'll access all the even element of the array in this variable. So in this way, we learned about different way to iterate over array, and using push method, how you can add element at the end of the array.